This sound. It's one of the most common, most ordinary sounds in our daily lives. We hear it so often, we barely notice it anymore. But what if I told you that this simple action, turning a key in a lock, is the echo of a 4,000-year-old revolution? The key in your pocket, your bag, or on your kitchen counter is more than just a piece of metal. It's a direct descendant of a device so powerful, it redefined what it meant to be human. It gave us one of the most fundamental concepts of modern life: privacy. It drew a line between the outside world and our own, between theirs and ours. So, who was the anonymous genius who first created a tool to secure a space? Where did this incredible invention come from? To find the answer, we need to travel back in time, to a world without locks, a world without secrets. This is the origin story of the key. Can you imagine a world without keys? It's almost impossible. Our entire lives are built around secured spaces. But for the vast majority of human history, that world was reality. In early hunter-gatherer societies, the concept of personal property was fluid. Survival depended on the group, on sharing resources within the tribe. Your only security was the people around you. You didn't need a lock because the entire village was, in a sense, your home. If you needed to protect something, you'd hide it, bury it, or simply leave it under the watchful eye of the community. The first attempts at security were rudimentary. A heavy boulder, a clever knot that only you knew how to tie. In ancient maritime trade, merchants developed intricate Heracles knots to secure their cargo. If the knot was tampered with, they'd know immediately. But these were deterrents, not barriers. They couldn't truly stop a determined thief. So what changed? Two things: agriculture and cities. The agricultural revolution meant people could produce surplus food for the first time. Suddenly, you had a granary full of wheat that needed to last the winter. You had valuable seeds for the next harvest. As villages grew into cities, societies became more complex and, sadly, more anonymous. You no longer knew everyone you passed on the street. Wealth was being concentrated like never before, in temples, in palaces, and in the storehouses of the rich. The old methods of trust and simple knots were no longer enough. The world needed a new idea. It needed a mechanism that could tell the difference between a rightful owner and an intruder. And the answer would come from the banks of the Nile. The year is roughly 2000 BCE. In the powerful empires of ancient Egypt and neighboring Mesopotamia, a revolutionary invention quietly appears. It's so revolutionary, in fact, that for centuries it would be a technology reserved only for the gods and the kings. For a long time, we weren't entirely sure where the first true lock came from. But in the 19th century, archaeologists excavating the ruins of the Palace of Sargon II in Khorsabad, modern-day Iraq, found the oldest surviving example of a lock mechanism. It was dated to around 700 BCE, but historical records and other fragments tell us the design is much, much older, originating in Egypt around 4,000 years ago. And what they found was both brilliantly simple and surprisingly familiar. Forget the small metal key in your pocket. The first Egyptian key was a monster. It was a huge, heavy wooden tool that looked like a giant toothbrush, sometimes up to 2 feet long. It was so cumbersome, it was often carried over the shoulder. Here's how it worked. A large wooden bolt slid across the inside of a door to lock it. Inside the housing above this bolt was a series of small wooden pins. When the bolt was slid shut, these pins would drop by gravity into corresponding holes drilled into the top of the bolt, locking it firmly in place. It couldn't be moved. The key was the magic. The bristles on this giant toothbrush were actually pegs arranged in a specific pattern. To unlock the door, you would insert this key into the bolt and lift. If the pattern of the pegs on the key matched the pattern of the pins, it would lift all the pins to the exact same height, clearing the top of the bolt. Once the pins were clear, you could then use the key itself to slide the bolt open. Is it really as simple as it seems? Yes, and that's the genius of it. This is the very first example of a pin tumbler lock. It's a security system based on a unique pattern, a secret code of pin heights known only to the holder of the key. But this invention wasn't for the common person. Can you imagine trying to secure the door of your small mud brick house with a lock this massive and expensive? Absolutely not. These early locks were symbols of immense power and wealth. They guarded the treasures of the pharaohs, the grain stores that fed the kingdom, and the inner sanctums of temples. To be entrusted with the key was to be entrusted with the kingdom's most valuable assets. The key wasn't just a tool. It was a badge of office, a sign of ultimate trust and authority. It physically represented the power to grant or deny access. This idea of the key as a symbol of power has stuck with us for millennia. The Egyptian lock was a brilliant start, but it was clunky, made of wood, and reserved for the elite. For the key to truly change the world, it needed to be smaller, stronger, and more accessible. It needed Roman engineering. The Romans were master metalworkers and notorious borrowers of good ideas. They saw the Egyptian pin tumbler concept, and while they used it, they also developed their own, more widespread design, the warded lock. Instead of pins that needed to be lifted, a warded lock contained a series of fixed obstacles. Think of it like a simple maze. The key was cut with notches and grooves in a specific pattern that allowed it to bypass these wards and engage the lock mechanism. A key with the wrong pattern would be blocked. The real Roman innovation, however, was in materials and scale. They abandoned wood for iron and bronze, creating locks and keys that were far more durable and resistant to force. And most importantly, they made them small. And here we come to a fascinating cultural leap. The Romans created keys so small they could be worn as rings. This was a stroke of genius. It was practical. You were unlikely to lose a key that was attached to your finger. But it was also a powerful status symbol. Wearing a key ring signaled to everyone that you were a person of means. You had possessions so valuable they required locking up. It was the ancient equivalent of having the keys to a luxury car dangling from your finger. These weren't just for doors. They secured strong boxes, cabinets, and chests where a family kept its wealth and important documents. This is where the key starts to change not just security, but society itself. Why does this matter to us today? Because this Roman innovation helped birth the modern concept of privacy. Before this, most homes had very few internal doors, and those they had were often just covered with a curtain. Life was largely communal. But with the advent of smaller, more affordable locks, wealthy Romans could secure individual rooms within their homes. A study, a bedroom, a place to be alone with your thoughts, your business, or your family. The lock created a physical barrier that enforced a social one. It created a space that was truly yours, inaccessible to servants, guests, or even other family members without your permission. The key was no longer just protecting grain, it was now protecting the individual. The idea of a private life had begun. Did you know that the Romans were also pioneers in portable security? They invented the first padlocks, using the same warded technology, allowing merchants and travelers to secure their belongings on the move. The world was becoming a place of individual property, and the key was the tool that made it all possible. After the fall of the Roman Empire, you might expect the story of the key to continue its rapid innovation, but that's not what happened. For over 1,000 years during the Middle Ages, the fundamental technology of the lock stagnated. The warded lock, the Roman design, remained the standard across Europe. But while the internal mechanism didn't change, the external appearance became a canvas for incredible artistry. Locksmiths became highly revered members of craft guilds. They were artists as much as they were engineers. They would spend months creating a single lock, pouring all their skill into making it a masterpiece. Security in this era wasn't just about a clever mechanism, it was about disguise and complexity. They created locks with multiple keyholes, only one of which was real. They designed trick mechanisms and keys that were puzzles in themselves. The idea was to make the lock so intimidatingly complex that a potential thief wouldn't even know where to begin. It was a kind of psychological warfare. But there was a problem, a dirty little secret that all locksmiths knew. For all their beautiful, intricate designs, the warded lock had a critical flaw. Since the lock worked by having the key bypass fixed wards, a skilled thief could create a master key or a skeleton key. By filing away most of the key's blade, they could create a tool that bypassed the wards altogether, allowing them to turn the mechanism directly. So began the cat-and-mouse game that continues to this day. The eternal arms race between the lockmaker and the lockpicker. For centuries, security was more of an illusion than a reality. A better lock was desperately needed, and the catalyst for that change would be the smoke and thunder of the Industrial Revolution. The 18th and 19th centuries changed everything. The world was industrializing. Mass production meant more goods. Crowded cities meant more strangers. And the rise of a wealthy middle class meant more people had more things worth protecting. The old medieval locks were simply not up to the task. The world was crying out for a truly secure lock. The first breakthroughs came from England. In 1778, Robert Barron invented the double-acting tumbler lock, requiring the tumblers to be lifted to a precise height. A major improvement. Then, in 1818, Jeremiah Chubb patented his detector lock. If a thief tried to pick it, a special mechanism would trip and jam the lock, leaving evidence of the attempt. These were huge leaps forward. But the greatest revolution was yet to come, and it would happen across the Atlantic. Enter Linus Yale Sr., an American inventor who specialized in high-security bank locks in the 1840s. He made excellent, complex locks, but his son, Linus Yale Jr., was the true visionary. He wanted to create a lock that was not only incredibly secure, but also simple and cheap enough to be used by everyone, not just banks. And where did he find his inspiration? He looked back. Way back. Here is the most surprising fact in our entire story. The key that's likely in your pocket right now is based on a 4,000-year-old Egyptian design.
Linus Yale Jr. studied the ancient pin tumbler mechanism and was struck by its genius. He realized that the principle was perfect. It was the execution that was outdated. So he reimagined it for the industrial age. He replaced the giant wooden bolt with a compact metal cylinder, the plug that you put your key into. He replaced the long wooden pins with small spring-loaded metal pins of varying lengths. The mechanism works just like its ancient ancestor. The lock has two sets of pins, driver pins pushed by springs, and key pins, which the key touches. When there's no key, the driver pins block the cylinder from turning. But when you insert the correct key, the jagged serrated edge, the bitting, pushes the key pins up to a perfectly level line, the shear line. This alignment allows the cylinder to turn freely, retracting the bolt. He paired this revolutionary lock with a small, flat, serrated key, easy to manufacture and easy to carry. In 1861, Linus Yale Jr. patented his compact pin tumbler cylinder lock. He had perfected a 4,000-year-old idea and, in doing so, created the lock that would dominate the modern world.
The Yale lock democratized security. Suddenly, a high level of protection was affordable and available to almost everyone. The key became a ubiquitous symbol of modern life, a small token of ownership, independence, and personal space. It defined the front door of our home, the ignition of our car, the privacy of our diary. But the story doesn't end there. In the 21st century, the key is undergoing its most radical transformation yet. It's starting to disappear. We now have key cards, electronic fobs, numeric keypads, and biometric scanners that use our fingerprints or faces as the key. The physical object is being replaced by data, by information, by us. The key is no longer something you have, but something you are. So, is the key dead? Is this 4,000-year-old invention finally reaching the end of its story? Not at all. Because even as the physical object fades, the idea of the key is more powerful than ever. Think about our digital lives. We use passkeys to protect our accounts. The security that protects global finance and military secrets relies on encryption keys. We talk about finding the key to success or giving someone the key to our heart. The key transcended its physical form long ago. It has become our most powerful metaphor for access, control, and unlocking potential. From a 2-foot-long wooden tool for a pharaoh, to a bronze ring on a Roman's finger, to a marvel of Victorian engineering, and finally, to a line of code protecting your email. The journey of the key is the story of us. It's the story of our evolving need for security, our deepening desire for privacy, and our timeless quest for a space to call our own. The next time you pull out your keys, take a moment to look at that small, familiar shape. It's not just metal. It's a 4,000-year-old legacy. It's the simple, elegant device that gave us the power to draw a line in the sand and say, "This space is mine." And in doing so, it didn't just lock our doors, it unlocked a new way of being human. What an incredible journey, right? It makes you wonder what other everyday objects have such amazing stories. We'd love to hear your thoughts. What's the most surprising thing you learned about the history of the key? Let us know in the comments below. We read every single one. And if you enjoyed unlocking this piece of history with us, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to Origin Stories.
It really helps our channel grow and allows us to tell more stories like this one. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.